So this is the Commodore 64 that I've been having loads of trouble with, which doesn't pass its diagnostic checks and looks like it's got bad RAM, but I'm suspecting it's not the RAM because different RAM chips fail every time on the diagnostic. So there's clearly something wrong with it. And in the past, I did take out the VIC, the CPU, this GAL PLA, and the kernel, and I tried it in a different board that I got from an eBay seller, which was apparently working according to the eBay seller, and it produced not the same effect, but a very similar effect in that board. So my suspicion right now is that the VIC-2 is bad. I could be wrong, I'm not exactly sure. The reason for that is because the VIC-2 does actually refresh the memory. It's not just a graphics chip, so it's got other functions as well. If it wasn't for that, I probably wouldn't suspect the VIC, but I think the VIC might be bad. I've managed to acquire a new CPU, a working CPU, and a working R3 VIC as well. These are dated 1983 and 1984. So hopefully one of these is going to fix the board. I think I'm going to try the VIC first because, like I said, that's the one I suspect at the moment. So let's pop that one out. Oh, and by the way, people were asking, like, what was that thing that was on top of the VIC with like a screw coming out of it? And it was actually just a little part of an Amiga heatsink with a screw in it that I'm using just to get some of the heat out of this, because this is an R1 VIC chip and it really does generate quite a lot of heat. You're not supposed to run these without heatsink at all, I believe. Yeah, so that's the 6569 R1 and I've got the 6569 R3. I believe the output on these is better. The R1 output's not very good, so this should be an improvement anyway, even if it doesn't actually fix the problem. But if it doesn't fix the problem, that means the VIC's probably good, and then I've got two good VICs, because these things are hard to come by nowadays. CPUs and VICs not exactly in an abundant supply. Let me just see if I can get this out with the chip puller. I don't have much success with this chip puller, mostly because this VIC's just really stuck in there. You really do have to put a lot of force on it. There we go. That wasn't too bad. So that could actually get that out with the chip puller that time. I think it's getting easier to get in and out because of the number of times it's been pulled out. This has apparently not been, it's got a bit of heatsink paste on it, but it's not been desoldered. It's been taken out of a socket. I think these were probably all in sockets. I don't know if they ever soldered them in. See if we can get this in without busting anything. Right, here we go, moment of truth. Is this going to work? Oh, and the answer is no. The answer is no, it's not. Is it going to fail in the same way? Yes, it is. So maybe that VIC is good. Huh, that's odd. Oh yeah, look at that. So yeah, it's coming up with the same like glitchiness on the screen. Wow, that's looking even worse. That is crazy. Oh my god. But yeah, different chips come up bad at different times. So, oh yeah, it's cleared up there. Well, it's not getting anywhere near as warm as the other one. It's getting a little bit warm. It's not a bad VIC. That's what we know so far. So let's swap this CPU out as well and see if we get anything better. I mean, hopefully I've got a good CPU as well, because then I've got two good chips, because I've got another board to populate. If I could get both boards working, that'd be great. These two chips aren't that easy to find. Right. That is a new CPU. And here we go. Second moment of truth. I haven't got any more chips to replace, so if this doesn't work, it's not going to work. And the answer is no. So I didn't have a bad CPU and I didn't have a bad VIC, but it still doesn't work. And I've been looking around at this board and I can't find any bad signals on the board or anything. Maybe I'll have to have another look. I mean, that really hasn't changed anything. That's just, so these are both probably still good. Previously, I put these two chips into my other board and I got a very similar result. So the other two chips that I did have to take with it was this GAL PLA and the kernel ROM, because there's no kernel ROM in that other board. Somebody suggested that the dead test cart will actually work. This does a dead test. That does actually work if you don't have a kernel ROM in. So I could pull the kernel ROM out and try the dead test, But I think the dead test might work on this anyway. Let's just run it in that mode. Oh look, it's not coming up with all the RAM on that screen. Wow, look at the dead test mode. It's hard to believe that that's not... I mean, it could just be a bunch of dodgy RAM chips, but that is super odd. You'll get different result. Yeah, I'm getting a different result if I reset it. So it's kind of unreliable as to what it's actually going to do. Maybe if this maybe will work with the kernel ROM pulled out. Let's try that. But I don't know. If it gets into the dead test without the kernel ROM, then I've got a bad kernel ROM. But I don't think it can boot without this, because it's not a proper diagnostic cart. Here we go. So this is the same thing, but without the kernel ROM. Oh. Well, that's interesting. Oh no, I wonder if I have got a bad kernel ROM. Oh, because it's now not got the screen corruption, but it's doing one flash. Let me just reset that and see if it's consistently one flash. It is. Oh. I can't believe it. If it's all this time it's been this kernel ROM. I don't have a replacement for this at the moment. I mean, I know it's not the SID and the CAAs, because you can take those out and it's still the same. It's not the CPU and it's not the VIC. And the GAL PLA, I don't have a replacement for that right now, but I suspect it's not that, because this is quite new and been made recently, obviously. So it's probably quite good. And I know it's quite compatible with virtually everything. In fact, I think everything. So I don't suspect that, but I wonder if this kernel ROM has just gone bad. That is extremely strange. Let's pop it back in and see if we get the corrupted graphics. Right, let's see if we get the same corruption. Oh no, corruption's gone now. I mean, it's possible though that there's another fault on this board. Why have I now got no corruption? Let's go back to the other cartridge. Oh, it's got slightly more RAM, so that's now behaving the same. But I don't think I can run that one without the kernel ROM in. Yeah, so that's with the kernel ROM in, and it's back to the same crazy screen. Let's turn it off and on again. Oh, now it's not doing it. So maybe it's not the kernel ROM. I just don't know. I actually don't know what's causing this. So maybe I'll try these 1, 2, 3, 4 chips in this other board that I've got and see if I get any different result in that. So I'll swap these out into the board that I got from the eBay seller. So that's the VIC, PLA, CPU and kernel ROM swapped out into this other board that I got from an eBay seller, which apparently, again, I'll say does work. So let's just boot this up and see what we get. Here we go. It's bad in the same way. It's bad in the same way. Yeah, it looks quite similar actually. And this is a different CPU and a different VIC. So, I don't know. So it only leaves the kernel ROM and the PLA that's really, it's one of those two, but I don't know which one. I mean, I've not really tested out this. I mean, if the PLA was bad, I wouldn't expect the computer to boot at all. So that's still giving me the one flash. So that's like the same as in the other computer. Let's try the diagnostic cart. Oh yeah, look, that is quite similar to the other one. Not quite the same, but very similar. Oh, that's not the same. That's crashed. It's properly crashed. It just goes back to the... Oh, and that's gone cyan. So it is definitely worse in this one. But remember, this is a different CPU and a different VIC, and it still can't seem to boot it. So I don't know. I don't believe this PLA is broken, but it could be. And then let's try it without the kernel ROM in. So yeah, I don't think the diagnostic cart can boot without the kernel ROM. But this one works exactly the same with this one flash. So I wonder, is this PLA, this GAL PLA, actually bad? And that seems to be the conclusion from this, because this is behaving the same in these two different boards. The only thing that's not been swapped really is kind of this, because all this board was swapped, these two chips were swapped. It's just the GAL PLA. I wonder if it's bad. I mean, because I didn't make this. This came with this last board that I got. I mean, the other possibility is it's a power supply, but the power supply, I've just checked, it was doing 5.1 volts, and the power on these is good because I've checked this before. That's exactly 12 volts, and that's pretty much spot on 5 volts. It seems to be that maybe it's this. I mean, this one is pointing to a bad RAM chip, but I suppose it could be a bad RAM chip on this one, but I don't know. It seems just too coincidental that these two faults are the same on both of these computers. When you've swapped out all the chips, you've got a new CPU and VIC. The only thing that seems to be the same is this PLA. I wonder if it's a bad PLA. I mean, it doesn't look like... This one did have a leg that was kind of pushed out when I got it. But I don't think it's that. I mean, let's just reseat these chips that are in here anyway. See if that makes any difference. Now I'm starting to suspect this this GAL PLA, because these GAL chips must be old as well, because I don't believe they're made anymore. I mean, I just get the feeling that if this wasn't working, the whole computer would be balked. But I could be wrong, because this works in a different way to the original PLA. It doesn't appear to be anything visually wrong with it. So let's just spray some of this in it. But yeah, I'm not hoping that this is going to fix anything. I'm just going to it's just the reseating of the chips really. Just one more try with that reseated GAL PLA. And same result. So there we have it. I don't really know what's going on here. We've got possibly a bad GAL PLA. I don't know if this is bad, but it just seems like it could be. And I doubt it's this ROM chip. Like I said, Stella says this one's... I'm just going to have to take the word for it that this is working, because I don't think it's got a RAM problem. It could have, but I doubt it. The fact that it's doing the same as the other one is pretty odd. So there we go. It's a miserable failure. So that's where we're up to. It still doesn't work. I don't know. I think off camera I'll probably probe around with the oscilloscope, see if I can see anything wrong. Maybe I'll try probing around on this GAL PLA, because it's actually quite hard to get the probe in there. Maybe there's some bad signals on this somewhere. It could indicate this. But maybe if I could get some more of these chips and program them, which I don't have a programmer, then I could maybe have a go at replacing this, because it doesn't look like there's anything on the board to go wrong. There's not a lot of stuff on there. So yeah, so that's it. It still doesn't work.